Okay, family. We up to bat. We got a adversarial group here that wishes to try to come against my material. I recently did a presentation. I think it was last week on why African Americans are not West African, and I particularly said are not West African, uh, meaning West African. Well, I'll say especially modern West Africans. Personally, I don't believe that. I'll say most of what you would call Black Americans are not descendants of West Africans. And last week I went into detail as to why. I invited some people onto the chat. They tended to be kind of like hecklers. They really didn't have anything to really contribute, at least not in my opinion. So this gentleman did ask me, Shawn P is his name. He did ask me, could he do a rebuttal to my presentation? I told him, yeah. So I listened to a little bit already. Um, I feel like it's not really being fair and honest about what I'm saying, and it's not really trying to understand what I'm saying. So um, I feel like it was needed to. I needed to do an immediate response. I probably won't be able to get through this whole thing. I'll break it up into parts, probably four parts, maybe more, because as I can see here, this guy's got like, let me see, I think he got like 5 hours on here, man. I'm carrying on. Yeah, it's 5 hours. So yeah, I'm definitely not gonna sit through. I'm not gonna do 5 hours in one sit down. I don't really think the material deserved 5 hours, but we're gonna get through this a little bit at a time. I'm gonna pause it at the you know intermittently and address some points one by one as this guy goes through my original presentation. So with that being said, let's get into it. See what Mr. Shawn P is talking about. I guess his channel is called Mossy Warrior Clan. And you can see in the background he has Aboriginal slash Indigenous anti science killer. Let's see how thorough he is. Let's go.
Y'all make sure y'all are subscribed and linked into the AWO podcast team as they deal with, Ishe. Um, for traditionalists, that's pretty much continental stuff. So, as it comes to E5 and all of that. So, I hope y'all are learning from that. But nah, I do not ever feel bad about that. There's people that have been in worse situations. You see somebody in the chat right now
Let's get
talking
to
about
this.
they was dealing with Malachi York.
Get to it.
He, yep. Situations. You see somebody. All
You
right, let me know if y'all can hear
look
that.
on the real is common sense. That's not a valid answer. India, that's not a valid answer. We're gonna go ahead and get into it, man. India, she need to get this act right. I'm gonna give her this business, man. What I want to start with. Yeah, we'll get the PowerPoint up. And that PowerPoint, okay, cool. Y'all can see it. Just want to make sure y'all see it. Everybody can see that. All right, bet. Yeah, I will go ahead and get started. I'm gonna put this PowerPoint on slideshow. And if you can't see it, just say you can't see it. If I don't hear nothing, I'm gonna assume that you guys can see it. So let's start from the beginning, and we're gonna rock out. Now, I would actually, I would like for you guys to say that you can see the screen just to verify it. Because while I got the slideshow up, I can't see you guys. All right, bet. Good. I'm gonna go ahead and get started then. All right, and I guess what I'll do is I'll pause in between and I'll come back and we can have some discussions about some important pieces of this presentation. But why African Americans are not West African. All right, right here. Okay, DNA. With the Black indigenous community gaining momentum throughout social media, some wish to stymie this exponential growth in interest by hovering DNA in the form of haplogroups as a dark cloud over the movement in an effort to cast doubt over the movement, posing such questions as your haplogroup is the same as present day Africans, then how could you be indigenous to the Americas? This question may seem legitimate on the surface, but when compared to the mainstream modeling of the peopling of America, it determines a migrational movement from Siberia to Thuringia and then into the Americas via Alaska, which invalidates such a claim by logic. So I'm gonna back out and I'm gonna get y'all back up here, get some opinion. So you guys heard that part, So basically, what I'm saying right now is that the mechanism used against um, so-called Black Americans is that we harbor DNA that is foreign to this landmass, but we run into a contradiction, when we say this, because the common narrative for the people of America is that of a population that carries um, foreign DNA. So what I grasp from that is basically, um, I want to say discriminatory, a discriminatory attitude pertaining to Black Americans and their DNA. And first of all, DNA is predetermined anyway, based off a narrative. But let me get back into the slide. Let me keep going so we can get through this. And like I said,
That man said DNA is predetermined.
so right here, the brother is laughing, hee hee ha ha, because he doesn't understand the context of what I mean. So what I mean is that once a narrative is set in place, that DNA is determined. And so what I'm saying is that the narrative says that African Americans or so-called African Americans derive from West African ancestry. Um, so with that narrative set in place, uh, phylogenetists are looking at the reconstruction of DNA and lineage based off of certain theories and narratives. So they're going to center their findings and how they interpret DNA based on certain theories. That cannot be denied. Example of which would be the out of Africa theory. So a lot of the DNA, a lot of the haplogroups that are that are determined for human beings, uh, a lot of it is inferred. A lot of the earliest haplogroups have not been found in fossil evidence, so they're reconstructing. They're doing reverse reconstruction to to map out these haplogroups. So this is what I mean by it's predetermined. If you have a certain type of alleles or something like that, certain type of genomes, they're going to be predetermined that you belong in this group. That's what I mean. I might not have said it, the absolute, the sharpest way or whatever, however you want to put it. But that was the intent in that. And it's no denying that. He can say what he wants, but it's good. We'll move on. I stop periodically asking questions and yeah, get some thoughts on you guys' minds and keep this interactive. Uh, go for the current slide. All right. Human gene flow is not linear. And I know I spelled this wrong. I forgot to correct this part. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and go with what it is. Multiple discovery underlined a reoccurring phenomenon about human gene flow, which is that ancestral population movement was not confined by regional or continental movement. The continental movement is somewhat, probably not the best or the correct word because, and I'll explain why in a second. But the the gene flow pattern in this ancestor to later Native Americans, at least in part. Um, these findings indicated that the ancestor of modern Native Americans received gene flow from two sources located on the opposite extremes of Eurasia. So, if you guys are not familiar with this particular finding, this particular
So I'm not here yet, and I didn't hear this, but listening to this, right? He said there's two different gene flows from two different perspectives. So he is insinuating that the ancestors of the Native Americans um, were too far apart to actually meet. Unaware of, he's unaware.
No, again, this is he's not comprehending what I'm saying. I didn't say they were too far to meet, and actually, I had a little bit. I need to sharpen what I was saying, and I had the direction of the gene flow, slightly wrong, but the concept of it being braided was spot on, and this is what I mean. So the Malta discovery, found it before Malta, Native Americans were found to have a West Eurasian type of signal in their genome. And, it was confusing at the time before Malta because they had this West Eurasian signal. And then, they were trying to figure out where it was coming from. Well, Malta revealed that. What the Malta founding revealed was that uh, that particular gene flow from Malta actually was distributed across the the continental landmass into West Eurasia, not the other way around. In this instance here, in this recording here, I stated that Malta received gene flow back from West Eurasia. That's not what happened. Malta delivered gene flow to West Eurasia. And so, therefore, his gene flow is being picked up in West Eurasians. And so, when Native Americans were assessed, they're seeing his signal and they're associating it with the West Eurasian signal because, in part, Malta did deliver gene flow to West Eurasia in ancient times. So, in general, generally speaking, the human genome pattern is braided. Malta is on the other side of the map, on opposite ends of Eurasia, and they contributed gene flow into West Eurasia, and this is the reason why Native Americans have a West Eurasian gene flow as well. This is the reason why early Kenwick had he had West Eurasian type of a phenotype. That's why it was controversial at first in terms of what Kenwood man represented because his phenotype was West Eurasian. Well, here it is. You know, he looked West Eurasian because Malta, they were West Eurasian looking, and they delivered gene flow into West Eurasia, and they are responsible in part for West Eurasian gene flow. That's absolutely facts. Uh, and it is what it is. So anyway, moving on.
Of the actual evidence that exists. Now, as you can see, according to his slide, he is talking around DNA, not specifically, but around. You hear him using
And that's just conjecture, man. I'm not talking around anything. My point was that ancient gene flow was braided, and that's an absolute fact. Because also the Malta boy gene flow or Malta's gene flow was input into the Yemeniya as well in the European steppes. They carried the same type of gene flow. So so yeah, man. I don't think Mr. Shine here knows these type of details, and so since he doesn't, it's confusing to him. But anyway, let's keep going.
words like gene flow and other big words, but he's not understanding migratorial routes.
How is gene flow a big word? Gene flow is a general term. How is that a big word? If that's a big word, then homie shouldn't be discussing DNA. If that's a big word, I never knew gene flow was a big word. But anyway, let's go.
And that humans populated the earth, the best thing that they did was leave genetic evidence behind everywhere they went. No matter where
False. You know, a lot of population gene flow is unaccounted for through through fossil evidence. So that's false. You don't have any fossil evidence between Africa and and West Eurasia and Central Asia for the D1 haplogroup at all. All you have in terms of fossil evidence for the D1 haplogroup is the current and modern D1 carriers and the recent fossil evidence that's been recently put in the ground, basically, recent civilizations that's been put in the ground, but that's all in East Asia. There's none, no fossil evidence in Central Asia or West Eurasia for fossil evidence in terms of the D1 haplogroup. So that's just one example that comes to mind of lack of fossil evidence for haplogroups. So this gentleman is trying to say that all all population gene flow is captured by fossil evidence, and that's not true. So, but in this case, it didn't even pertain. None of that pertains to what I was saying in the first place in terms of the Malta being the ancestor that carried that West Eurasian component, because Malta has been found. So that doesn't none of that really pertains to this particular finding. So I don't even know why you mentioned that. But let's move forward.
human is on this earth, how they got to the place and space of where they were, they left DNA behind. So, real briefly, I want you to think about every house you've ever lived at.
What's that?
Every house you've ever lived at. If you've been in the same house all your life, you a lucky mofo. But if you think about everywhere where you lived at, if you moved from one place to another, if you went to college, or and you stayed on campus, off campus, somewhere along your migratory route to get to where you are today, you have left genetic evidence behind in the places and spaces that were not conducive to where you started.
Horrible example. No, you might have left some DNA, man, but it's not the same as fossil evidence, my guy. You know, if you sneeze somewhere, or you might have left some fingerprints or something like that. That DNA is not going to stay intact for a long time. We're talking about fossil evidence. We're talking about skeletal remains, that retain DNA. I don't know how that's comparable to what you're saying, brother, but let's keep going.
I don't know if y'all are catching what I'm putting down,
No,
but
we
I'm
not.
trying to keep it G.
I mean,
So if we're going to understand a migratorial pattern and a genetic flow, we must fully understand that we are talking about a population of people who cohesively did not exist prior to moving from one spectrum to.
and real quick, I'm gonna get this on the screen, so I can verify my point here. I'm gonna stop sharing, and I'm gonna share this here. Let's see. Let's see. I want to stop sharing. Okay, get it up here. Let me blow it up. That ain't helping. All right, so I'm gonna put it back on here. I don't know why that's not sharing. Let me try it one more time. Maybe I can show it on here. Okay, I think that's as good as it's gonna get. Yeah. Okay, so this is what I was referring to in terms of this braided gene flow. So does multiple have a West Eurasian component? What MA1 actually is 24,000 years old, from Siberia, member of ancient North Eurasians. The key clarification: Malta is not West Eurasian, but West Eurasians are partly descended from Malta-like people. So there it is. I had the G flow in reverse in my demonstration, but the concept is still conveyed. We still have gene flow coming from one end of the continent going into the other complete opposite end, in that the Malta people, distributed their gene flow into West Eurasia. That's why Native Americans give the appearance that they have West Eurasian signals. So that's the point that I wanted to make. I'm gonna stop sharing that, and then I'm gonna get back into this guy's debate. If that's what you want, his rebuttal. If that's what we calling it. It's I don't think it's impressive so far. But I'm gonna let him shoot his, his little 1-2, man. All right, let's get back into this, man.
To another and leaving behind their DNA, which would ultimately provide genetic evidence, genetic ancestry for the existence of those peoples during parts of history, which would be a chronology. But let them go.
Specimen of this particular ancestor of Native Americans, basically this is supposed to be like the missing link. And what I'm demonstrating right here is that
How would the Native Americans have a missing link when the Native Americans are
okay. So again, well, let him finish his point. Um,
descendants of the Paleo Indians, which would be the first natives to populate the Americas? And
they are not descendants of the Paleo Americans. Again, um, Paleo Americans, at least some Paleo Americans, were never genetically sequenced. Guys like this run with the narrative that um, Lucia was genetically sequenced. She was not. On part two, I'm gonna make sure that I show that as well, where that misunderstanding is coming from. The actual um, specimen that was sequenced was called Luzio. Um, and so Luzia is pronounced. I mean, it's spelled Luzia. They spelled this one Luzio. Luzio. It's a male, not a female, and it wasn't at the Pacific site that Luzia was found with or found at with the other. I think it was like close to 50 other skeletal remains that were retrieved. So it's in the same region, but it's not the same site. That's another misconception, and they are separated by about 1,000 years. Like I said, I'm gonna pull the exact article, and for part two, and I'll make sure I go over that. But this guy is falsely, um, you know, um, uh, convoluting Native American ancestry with Paleo Americans. They were clearly not the same. These were the types that were all described as Negroes. And really, even after the Paleo American era, there were um, skeletal remains and craniums included with these skeletal remains that were widely described as Negroes. Um, but anyway, let's move forward. See what he's talking about.
they came together because two groups of people met from Eastern.
Let's back that up, man. What does he mean come together? What are you talking about? Let's see here.
How they got to the place and space of where they were, they left DNA behind. So, real briefly, I want you to think about every house you've ever lived at. Every house
Right here is that.
of people who not just that, but also the Kelp Highway
Mhm.
is also a key piece of evidence in this conversation that allows us to know the migratorial routes of the first peoples who enters the Americas. We have the genetic studies, we have
My point was never about migratory routes, Sean. It was about the ancestor that answered the question of the West Eurasian signal in Native Americans. Yeah, you just don't comprehension skills, brother. I'm gonna get you up to par though, man. I'm gonna take care of you, brother. Let's keep going.
The archaeological evidence. We have uh, tons of archaeological evidence that puts us in the perspective to be able to answer those questions from what we know. I don't know where he gets off with this myth or this supposedly or trying to create doubt on the best evidence that we have, but let's let him go.
If I'm not mistaken, and I'll verify this a little bit later, but I don't think there's any any ancient remains outside of Malta or in between Malta of what you would call uh, ancient Native Americans um, between Siberia and their entry into the Americas. Um, I'm gonna verify that before I speak too soon on that, but I'm pretty sure that there's not. So he's saying that this gene flow or migrational pattern is fully captured. If I'm not mistaken, that's false. But in part two, I'll make sure that'll be something that I make sure that I start the live off with. I'm gonna make these notes too. We want to talk about part two. We want to talk about Lucia versus Luzio differences. Then we want to talk about that's number one. Then we want to talk about fossil evidence of ancient Native American ancestry around the Beringia area. Matter of fact, let me see now. Let's see if I can share the screen into ChatGPT. We might be able to verify it right now. Let's see. How much? Let's see. Let me get that on the screen too, so y'all can see it. Let's see if I can get it on there. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So, how much fossil evidence has been found around the Thuringia area in terms of migrational no, then movement for ancient Native American ancestry. Let's see. So it did say skeletons. Let's see what it's saying for skeletons. Sun River. 11,500 years ago. Two infant burials whose mitochondrial DNA connects to the early American lineages shows that the Eastern Beringians were ancestral to later populations across the Americas. Early Beringian skeletal fragments corresponding to term Paleostone DNA. Okay. Upper Sun River in Alaska. Swan Point, Alaska. Genomic studies suggest a population of humans live isolated in central Beringia for several thousand years before splitting. I think what my question was what about their ancestry? What about fossil evidence before Beringia entry? I think that was the question. Oh man, it's asked me to upgrade. Now I don't know why it won't let me log in. I got it on my phone. Um, I think what I'll do is I'll ask it on the phone, and then I'll send a photo of it through my phone. Let's see here. Is there any fossil evidence for Native American ancestry before entry to Beringia? Okay, this says no. Yeah, that was my question. And I'm gonna take a screenshot of this, and I'm gonna send it to myself and put it on the screen. And we're gonna continue debunking this guy's points one by one. Real easy. He says that it's just this, clear cut case. Not so fast, my boy. So I'm gonna stop sharing this here, and I'm gonna go to my email. We'll bring this up, and I'm gonna share my email. All right. You see the question? Is there any fossil evidence for Native American ancestry before entry to Beringia? Short answer is no clear fossil evidence of a distinct Native American population exists before Beringia, but there is strong indirect evidence, especially genetic and archaeological, pointing to their ancestral populations in Siberia before they entered Beringia. Let's break it down carefully. Okay, so it says here what we mean by before entry in Beringia, Native American ancestors were part of the Northeast Asian Siberian populations, not yet a distinct group. So the real question is, do we have fossils of ancestral populations that later became Native Americans? And so it's gonna go on to say yeah to that. But the idea is that this group um, came into Beringia intact. So if they came into Beringia intact, they should have been intact before Beringia. And I'm not saying that they weren't. I'm not saying that, that they didn't take that migrational pattern. I'm just saying that there's no fossil evidence directly from Malta Boy with the the A&E ancestry and the East Asian ancestry, and a continuous migrational pattern of fossil evidence being shown across this migrational pattern into Beringia. It's not smooth like that. So I don't know if Big Shawn P here realizes this. And man, it's 106, man. And I'm gonna keep cooking for probably at least another 20 minutes, man, and then we'll cut it. We'll make this part one, but this will probably turn into, man. This I'll probably have to do this like hours at a time, because he's got 5 hours. I'm wondering how could this guy talk for 5 hours? What could he be saying for 5 hours? But anyway, I guess we're gonna find out. Let's see. Let's get back to the YouTube. Get that back playing. Linear. And I know I spelled this wrong. I forgot to correct this part. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and go with what it is. Multiple discovery underlined a reoccurring phenomenon about human gene flow, which is that ancestral population movement was not confined by regional or continental movement. The kind of continental movement is somewhat, probably not the best or the correct word, because, and I'll explain why in a second. But the the gene flow pattern in this ancestor to later Native Americans, at least in part. Um, these findings indicated that the ancestor of modern Native Americans received gene flow from two sources located on the opposite extremes of Eurasia. So, if you guys are not familiar with this particular finding, this particular specimen of this particular ancestor of Native Americans, basically this is supposed to be like the missing link. And what I'm demonstrating right here is that even the ancestor of Native Americans are not basically in one place. And as it reads, the findings of Malta found that Native American gene flow consisted of that of ancient North Eurasian, that gave rise to the basal clay. So that's one error that I did make, in saying that they weren't in the same place. Their gene flow did spread across continents, but regionally they were somewhat close together. East Asia is not exactly Siberia. I think East Asia would be considered more, if I'm not mistaken, southwest from Siberia. So, but it's still, you know, might not be a hop, skip, and a jump, but it's not completely on the other side of the map. But their gene flow is still nonetheless conceptually braided. So, but anyway, let's keep going. R1. Interestingly, R1 would migrate to West Eurasia and would diversify into R1b. R1b would then move in two different directions, migrating into Africa and then returning to Northeast Eurasia to contribute West Eurasian gene flow and input into Northeast Eurasia. Now, pause it right there. So, that last part was slightly incorrect. I mean, the R1B did return to North Eurasia, so I guess in part it's partially correct, but I didn't articulate it, the way that it was supposed to be articulated completely. But conceptually, it's still the point is still conveyed. Um, the gene flow is braided, and it's not just for Native Americans. It's for all early ancestors. That's the way they were moving. Anyway, let's see what he says about this.
Now he just said all of this shit confusing everybody because he's talking about the ancestors of the Native Americans. Then he talked about my migration route into.
You're confused because you don't, you have trouble comprehending What's his name? Shoot, man, I forgot this dude's name that quick, man. Um, but anyway, he's confused uh, because he just has trouble comprehending braided gene flow. I mean, I don't know how it can be confusing. I simply said that you know, a haplogroup started in one region of the continent, went to another region, diversified. After it diversified, it returned back to its origin. How difficult is that? Shawn P is his name. Yeah, how could I forget the guy? But anyway, yeah, Sean, I don't know how difficult that is to understand. I'll reiterate it again. So R1 starts off in Siberia. Um, it it migrates to West Eurasia, diversifies into R1B. The R1B moves in like three different directions. One into Africa, one stays in Eurasia, one moves to Europe, back into Siberia, some of it anyway. And so you got cross continental migrational movement, braided movement. How hard is that to understand? I guess it's hard for you, man. You know, I get it, brother. I'm gonna get you right though.
Africa. When, first of all, you don't have a chronology, you haven't established anything. So you're telling me that the northeastern Eurasians and Siberian admixed people who migrated to the Americas and populated the Americas suddenly stop right there, backtrack out of the Americas, or never went into the Americas and said, hey,
Sean? Where exactly did I say all of that? This happened before they entered the Americas, and this is what I'm saying. These guys don't comprehend. They can't follow, uh, you know, uh, directions of comprehension and and retain anything of what you're saying. Never did I say that they entered the Americas, came back out, remigrated somewhere else, came back to Siberia, and then re-entered the Americas. I never said that, buddy. What I said was their ancestors were admixed in a braided way before entering Beringia. Shouldn't have to spell that out. If you actually read the study about the Malta fossil finding, I guess I shouldn't assume that you did read it and that you did previously understand it because obviously you don't. But anyway, let's go.
let's go back to Africa. And so you're telling me they're going to take that migratorial route back to Africa that's going to take them a long ass time to even arrive in Africa, according to you.
So I don't know if this guy thinks that I was saying that they came out of Africa and then the V88 came out of Africa and then went into Siberia and then Beringia. I, I don't know what he's saying. I guess as I continue to listen, it'll become more clear. I hope that's not what he's saying because that would be that'd be stupid, Sean. But let's see, man.
Because you haven't given us a source. We don't know what you're reading from or where you even got this information to even argue. They're not two different extremes. If you're looking at a map, you can look at a map and see that Asia, Eurasia is right there. And then if you got Siberia and East Asians, you're going to see how close they are. They're both confined to very cold climates.
Uh,
In that north,
West Eurasia is on the other side of the map, homie. Let's look at that map again. I ain't gonna do it now, man. I mean, it's obvious that the Levant is nowhere near Siberia. I think everybody knows that. I don't think I need to put that map on the screen, man. Um, I had the directional flow a little mixed up, but the Malta population did put gene flow into the Levant. That's just facts. Whether he knows it or realizes it or not, it's irrelevant. It's a fact. Maybe in part two, I'll pull the actual study and put the whole study on the screen. Um, but at least for right now, we got ChatGPT verifying what I'm saying in terms of the Malta population putting that gene flow into the Levant. And R1, well, ChatGPT didn't go into all that. But I thought some things were just well understood, but I guess not with this group. Let's move on.
Northern region over there where the tip of Asia and all of that meet. I don't understand how we come to the. You ever heard? Never mind. I ain't got to bring that up. But
Yeah, I know you don't understand, buddy.
most of this, based on the slide that you have on the screen, is fluff. You don't have a map.
Uh huh.
You ain't even got a historical timeline. You threw out haplogroups.
Buddy, all you need to know is that these are the ancestors of Native Americans, um, in part because Martha Boy had nothing to do with the East Asian component of their ancestry. All you need to know, you don't need to know time frames and nothing like that. You just need to know that this happened before Beringia. This was already established. That's all you need to know. Now, in that ChatGPT photo, it told you that Martha Boy was, that fossil was 24,000 years old. So um, it actually puts a little bit of a time crunch in getting into Beringia because it's estimated that that uh, when uh, when the Native American ancestors entered Beringia, they were anywhere between, I think it's what, uh, 20 to 25,000 years ago when they, allegedly entered Beringia. But we have Malta Boy at 24,000 years of age. The fossil is 24,000 years old, not age, but 24,000 years old. So, but anyway, the only point you need to understand, Sean, is that this mixed ancestry was established uh, before Native American ancestors entered into Beringia. Just keep it simple, bro. You overthinking it, man. My point was never what you thought it was. Just establishing the fact that their ancestors had multiple gene flow inputs. And that's it, brother. Yeah, you ain't got to make it, make it difficult, brother. Let's move on, man. Stay on topic.
And you didn't even explain it. You
Explain
didn't
what?
explain that at all. You didn't explain the ancestral uh, evidence that proves who the Native Americans' ancestors were. All of that. You just cherry picking. So from from what I've gathered in this first slide is that a comment that I put in the chat, and I told him, so I'm ready to see you show us that we come from Asians. I told him that I'm ready for him to show that black people come from Asians.
Why would you be expecting me to show you that black folks come from Asians? Well, I mean, where do you get that from? Why would we come from Asians? Like, Asians are a derived population group. So, uh, and they were later derived, especially. So, Why would we be coming from a younger population group, Sean? You got to explain that one to me, buddy. And where did you get that idea that that's what I was trying to convey? That we come from Asians. I think you got that mixed up because we were talking about haplogroup DE possibly diversifying or splitting in Asia, and the E haplogroup moving across Asia into Africa. I think that's where you made that mistake. But let's move forward. You a funny guy, Sean.
because ultimately that is what he is insinuating without even insinuating it.
Yeah, you gotta explain that,
Because he
bro.
said Jane West.
You gotta explain that. If you think that me explaining this Malta boy stuff is saying that black people come from Malta boy, then your comprehension skills are very subpar, my brother. Because that wasn't the point. But anyway, let's move forward.
Africans. And if you ain't West Africans, then what is you?
Indigenous, dude. How many times we got to tell you, Aborigines? Is it hard? So, any thoughts so far? Incorrect. How am I incorrect? India. And just to save a little bit of time, if you're saying I'm incorrect, just go ahead and say how I'm incorrect. Just don't say incorrect because these texts are coming through delayed. So if it's incorrect, you spot anything in error, say how it's in error. And have you seen the study or even at least heard about it?
Just to preference the study while he's on the topic of the study. This man is presenting information in 2026 on a study that was published in 2009. The study is almost so outdated that you can't even use.
See, right now, Sean, you confusing the audience. I didn't present the actual study for Malta, and I don't believe the Malta study came out in 2009. I think that was more recent. So be specific of what you're talking about. But pertaining to the 2009 study, um, you know, nothing has changed about that. If anything, geneticists have actually expounded on the same point. So, you've yet to produce anything in terms of genetic research as of yet to rebut that. Now, it's 5 hours worth of material you got here, so maybe you might pull it out at some point. But with this multi-boy situation, you haven't pulled out any type of genetic study to say that what I'm saying is incorrect. I still doubt that you even know what the multi population is or was. So it would seem to me if you're gonna do a proper rebuttal that you would have your citations ready to rebuttal mine, and I haven't seen it yet, but maybe I'll see it later.
it. But even still, this is what he's using. We gonna roll with him. We gonna roll with him on his source. We gonna see what his source say.
Yeah, you're gonna have to if you don't have your own. So right now we are already 43 minutes and 58 seconds. So India is not answering the question. I think she might be having a brain fart. Let me see. Okay, she says Native Americans are ancient North Eurasian and ancient East Asian. There were no diversions back into Africa. What do you mean there were no diversions back into Africa? The R1B split three different ways. It's got a European branch, it's got a West Eurasian branch, and it's got the V88 that diversified inside of Africa. So what do you mean?
And here's where he's confused.
And I don't remember even talking about Africa. And if I'm not mistaken, that let me see, the Northeast East Asians, if I'm not mistaken, they carry a portion of Northeast Eurasian as well. So that's specifically in the Northeast Eurasian ancestry of. But no, it might be separate. Um, but they still contain a West Eurasian component for sure. But I'm gonna get into what happened. That wouldn't be they though. The East Asians don't contain the West Eurasian component. They would be separate from Malta. It's the A&E and the East Asian input that went into Native Americans, and the Malta boy ancestry is what's mimicking the West Eurasian signal. So just to straighten that up. But in this next slide is gonna get into that. But see, this is what I'm saying. Like these are the things that you guys, or at least I can say for India, that she overlooks. And then you guys, because you don't know about it, you guys insist that I have.
She called him out. She says, "You did say Africa. Y'all heard me say that he said Africa. He said Africa. He said migrated into Africa. Then he sit here and said he don't remember, saying what he's saying. Now I'm in the chat. You see, I done made my presence. Mr. Castro 27 is going to be rebuttaling him in the chat, and he kind of really don't deal with it. But it is what it is. Let's go.
So yeah, I did say Africa in the very beginning after going back through it. I said that the R1B diversified in Africa into V88. So yeah, I did briefly mention Africa. Yeah, they're right about that. But it doesn't even sound like they believe that. But anyway, let's move on. I have the information wrong, but I don't.
You you think you don't have the information wrong. Your interpretation of the data could be very much wrong. And
Where's
I
your
say it could be from the gist of you have a bias. So
where's your given interpretation of the Malta ancestry? Where's your demonstration of the understanding?
you're looking for something to support your bias. And therefore, when you find something, and I'm going to show you how ignorant it is for you to present some information and then try to clip things out of the
I can't wait, Sean. I'm still waiting for you to do it, buddy. Let's get to it. You wasted a lot of time, my friend.
article and then suggest it. First of all, you're outdated in your article. You need a better source. You need more up to date science, right? Because things have gotten better. But since you
Things have gotten
are
better.
afraid of
So I would hope that you'll produce this updated data, Sean. Where is it at?
that, it's going to be what it is going to be.
I know. You did say the Eurasian flow went back into Africa. Yeah, I did. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So yeah, R1B did go back into Africa. Yeah, that's absolutely true. R1B has three different mutations, I guess you can say. Three different splits. I guess that would be the right terminology. R1B, um, when it diversified, um, when R1 diversified in R1B in West Eurasia, um, it moved in two different directions. It moved west into Africa, diversifies into V88. Other populations move back east, crossed into Europe, back into Northeast Eurasia. For sure. Mr. Castro, yeah, R1B DNA is also found amongst the Cameroonians, for sure. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they carried a regular R1B as well, not just V88 in Africa, but they definitely carried a V88. So yeah, did I not address Africa? I mean, what is this man talking about? You familiar with Malta Boy? Well, Indy, if you familiar with Malta Boy, how come you didn't know he had West Eurasian components?
That boy don't know how to read DNA.
Well, you show it, Sean. It's either it is or it ain't. You talking about how to read DNA? You should go ahead and demonstrate it, man. You 5 hours and you haven't demonstrated anything. Shawn P. I think I done heard your name before trying to rush me and carrying on. Man, my position is West African, blah, blah, blah. Man, you ever heard of like setting the foundation, like, and building on top of the foundation to get to a conclusion or point? Come on, man. Y'all do it. I think I've had conversations with you, Sean. R1B is definitely a subclade of R1 for sure. What you mean? It's called R1B. You ask me, is it a subclade? It's a subclade of R1. You notice he's quiet. Okay, you never talked to me. That's cool. I could have swore I seen you. You not on Facebook?
I don't know this guy.
You gonna get to know me, Sean, real
I don't know
well.
what he's talking about.
You gonna get to know me real well. All right, boy. He said he here to see what I got, so I'm gonna keep going. I ain't gonna hold this up. Let's rock out. Okay, so just like I was getting to, the West Eurasian component would be largely overwritten by further Northeast Eurasian admixture to develop the ancestral population that would theoretically enter Beringia and eventually enter the Americas. This is significant for now. Again, that part is wrong. Um, it would be the East Asian component that would overwrite the A&E, um, and therefore, as a default, it would erode that perceived um, West Eurasian signal. And the only reason why it was coming up as West Eurasian is because the Malta population had input into the Levant to make it appear that Native Americans had a West Eurasian component to them. But as it turned out, it was more regional. That signal came from a regional ancestor, put it like that. So, yeah, that needed to be straightened out. Two reasons: it indicates a braided pattern constantly observed in ancient population groups, and it is also another demonstration of a population that had been overwritten from the genome. The DE superclade will be another example. This example isn't identical necessarily to the Malta example, but what I'm trying to demonstrate, and as you'll see, is that there are certain migrational patterns within so-called, Black people, what's now being called, African American. There are certain migrational patterns that are not captured because of uh, lack of or just not available fossil evidence. But I will explain exactly what I'm talking about here. What is the DE superclade? The DE superclade is the root clade that both the D and E root clades directly descend from. The DE superclade developed a unique variant called YAP positive. Um, that all downstream descendants uh, carrying their population identity, so that all downstream descendants carry this component, and therefore their identity is non-subjective. That's how that was supposed to read, or something like that. The DE superclade split roughly about 65,000 years ago, and from that point, the root clades D and E are formed. What is unique about Y DNA haplogroups D and E? Migrational movement patterns. The haplogroup is primarily as a sub-Saharan lineage. This is supposed to say
Oh
haplogroup
no,
E is derived.
no, no, mm. Read the source.
But it's not my fault.
See,
You don't know general information about the DE superclade, my guy. You go get the source. I'm spitting this off the top of my head, man. You the one who don't know.
I was working out and trying to listen to you, but you see what you did there?
What I do, Sean?
Look at his screen. It ain't even on the screen, but he reading something else.
Yeah, Sean, it hadn't been on the screen the whole time. For whatever reason, the screen share wasn't showing the entire PowerPoint the whole time, and you just not picking up on that. I've been consistent about that. I've said it on Facebook that it wasn't showing the slideshow as I was going. It's only showing it when I paused and came out of the slideshow. It only showed the current slide that I was on. So don't act like this hasn't been a consistent thing throughout this whole presentation. Like you've been seeing the full slideshow. You just making up stuff to make yourself sound good, buddy. But I'm on your top, buddy. You won't be able to squirm and run for too long, man. You're gonna have to come see me in a debate, and it's not gonna go well for you. Let's keep going.
But watch when he start whispering what he say. He say it has.
D and E are formed. What is unique about Y DNA haplogroup? Where am I whispering, Sean? This guy he lives in a delusional world. Like nothing is being whispered, buddy. It's loud and clear. Come again. Oops. D and E, migrational movement patterns. The haplogroup is primarily as a sub-Saharan lineage. This is supposed. Now, if you notice, Sean, you sat there and you've been watching this whole time, and you haven't seen these slides consistently moving, and you said nothing the whole 3 hours. Like so, when were you gonna notice that you weren't seeing these slides on the screen and not say nothing in the chat, buddy? Just want to know. Just curious. Supposed to say haplogroup E is derived. Haplogroup E is
Nah, that's not what it's supposed to say. You can't make the article say something that you don't want it to say.
Sean, I'm not reading from an article. I'm reading from my own PowerPoint, buddy. I can, word my own wordings how I want to. Yeah, buddy. I'm still waiting for your debate points. I'm still waiting for your for your citations on the DNE. Where's yours? Where's your citations on the Malta population? It's we are almost an hour in, and you have cited nothing. Let's keep going.
And the only reason I ain't gonna challenge you on the article right now
Ah,
and try to go find the exact article
yeah,
is because your ass didn't even show the article that you was reading from. You just hit us with this screenshot and you probably some slides on down and you never showed the shit.
yeah. Again, you trying to act like it's something I did on purpose when obviously none of the slides were showing. Man, you got to come with a better argument. Plus, I gave you the citations through the chat, buddy. I gave you my email. I told you to email me for all of the citations. You never did. So I mean, what's the problem, man? You can't come up with your own material. Just let me know, Sean, man. I'll help you out, man. I'll help you out, big dog.
So I don't feel like having to go match your reading words to an article and find an article that way.
You don't have to find the same article I had. There are plenty of articles on the DE Superclay. Just go find your own, man. Be creative. You know what I mean? You ain't got to do what I do. Why would you want to anyway?
I mean, I could.
Yeah, you could, but
I
you
can
want.
do it live.
Yeah,
I can stop,
yeah.
replay your words,
You want to repeat?
type your words in. If
Why don't you go get your own citations, man, and rebut my point by point, with your own citations, man? It's real easy.
find an article that says exactly what you just said, but you started whispering because your copy and pasting ass didn't read this article in full, and it told you that it had something to do with fucking Africa.
No, Sean, not at all. Later on, I did read directly from the article, and I told you when I was doing it. Um, and I think that did make the screen. But we'll see as we move forward. Haplogroup is primarily as a sub-Saharan lineage. This is supposed to say haplogroup E is the right.
No, haplogroup E has a sub-Saharan lineage.
No, buddy, I'm leading from my own slide. This dude's so slow, man. This dude is slow, dude. Let's go, man. You're a funny guy.
Say what it say, because you copied and pasted.
No, I didn't. It's my own words.
You try to take E outside and then spin E on some.
See, this dude, he probably can't articulate his own points off the top of his head, so he thinks that my words are so extravagant that I'm reading from an actual article. At this point, I'm not. Later on, I am, but it's so thorough that he thinks that I'm reading from an actual cited source, and I'm not. This is just paraphrasing off the top of my head at this point. Um, Matter of fact, let me bring up my own PowerPoint. I'm gonna stop sharing it, and I've already I've added a lot to it since then, so it's not what it was then. But let me stop sharing this, and then I'm gonna pull my own up on my screen. Here's my PowerPoint at. Don't see it. I gotta put it in slideshow. No, that should be it either. It's not showing my PowerPoint. I don't know what that's about. Try it one more time. Yeah, I'm not able to get my PowerPoint up on here, man. Unfortunately, can't share it. That's strange. Should be. Oh, here's the other windows. All right, here we go. There we go. Okay. Now I'm gonna go back. Go back from the beginning. Then I'm gonna go through so you can see that this is my own handwriting. It says, "What is the DE superclade? The DE superclade is the root clade that both the D and root clades directly descend from. The DE superclade develop a unique variant called YAP positive that all downstream descendants carry, making their population identity non-subjective. The DE superclade split roughly about 65,000 years ago, and from that point, the root clades D and E are formed. What is unique about Y DNA haplogroups D and E? The data E haplogroup is defined primarily as sub-Saharan as a sub-Saharan lineage. So this is already in my PowerPoint. This is I wasn't I pretty much said that in that presentation. He's trying to say that I whispered about this, whatever. But its direct predecessor was not. This was my whole point. Today, the E haplogroup is found most frequent in sub-Saharan Africa, but its sister lineage is not. So let's pause right there. Obviously, Mr. Shawn P thinks that just because a haplogroup is found somewhere in modern times, that means that that's where it always was, which is a very ignorant assumption on his part. But I'm gonna end it right here, man. It's going on 2 o'clock in the morning. This guy hasn't said anything yet, so this guy has presented no citations as of yet, and he's almost an hour into his presentation. So I know he wasted a lot of time within that 5 hours. Sure, he had to have. But I gotta go get some sleep. This dude is not talking about anything, but I'm still gonna address him on all levels. But we're gonna end it right here, man, and get back to it. I'm gonna do another one early in the morning, hopefully, before I get my day started and go into some more of this nonsense Shawn P is talking about.